Rod Fergusson, and I'm the studio head at the Coaltion in Vancouver, Canada.
Most of your career has been Gears, but then you moved and you worked in Irrational for a bit, and then you came back to Gears. What brings you back to Gears?
Brings me back to Gears is Gears. Why would you not want to go back to this franchise? It's my favorite franchise, and the fact that it's my favorite to play and create is awesome. Like, that's, as soon as I found out I had the opportunity, I thought like Gears was done, and when I realized that it wasn't, that there was an opportunity to work on it again, I jumped at it.
How different are the two experiences? Obviously, North Carolina with Epic, and now you're in Vancouver with the Coalition. How different are the two experiences?
It's very different when you look at where we were at the time. You know, after 7 years of working on Gears of War at Epic, you know, people were starting to have that conversation about like, what else are we going to do? Like, are we going to go and do new things? And so that was interesting, and that's when Gears was clearly going to get put on the shelf. That's why I left. And then to come to the Coalition of Gears, now it feels like it's back to 2005 again, and the excitement and the enthusiasm of the team, and then the passion for Gears of War is back, and that's what I really love about it, is that I have a team again that is as passionate about Gears as I am.
So when you came in, it was Black Tusk, and it was a completely different thing, and they're working on a completely different thing.
Right.
How much of that came across into Gears? Any of the ideas that came, the prototypes?
No, you know, one of the great things what they were working on that helped prepare them for Gears of War 4 is that they were working on Unreal Engine 4 for over a year and a half. So they're very familiar with the engine, which was great. And as we talked about the ideas of some of the stuff that they had been working on, you know, one of the great things is we're starting the beginning of a saga. And so they were working on something that we'd consider a high-tech game, which doesn't really fit into what we were looking at for this first story, which is kind of 3 people surviving the night in the woods. But as we looked at, like, hey, you know, as we think forward into the future games, there's lots of opportunity to leverage the things that they've been working on potentially in future Gears.
So the original almost kind of set the standard on the Xbox 360, and that almost was the new kind of, that was next gen when it landed kind of thing. Do you feel that Gears of War 4 has almost got to do that for this generation?
You know, I think Gears 4 has a different place in the life cycle of Xbox One than Gears 1 had for the 360. We always sort of push, we want Gears of War to push the box and the engine and to be a visual showcase for the platform, and that's something we really want to do. And I think the way that people got into the 360 because of Gears, we want to bring those people to Xbox One as well with Gears of War. But I don't think it has the same role, because I think it's a different time in its life cycle. But you know, we still want to push as hard as we can.
Do you almost feel the pressure to do that though, because of almost the heritage of the franchise?
Sure, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of pressure around trying to bring back. I think the biggest pressure, you know, there's the pressure that Microsoft's invested a lot into Gears of War. There's the pressure of the team that we have at the Coalition, but really the pressure comes from the community and just the fact that our fans, there's no fan more passionate than a Gears of War fan, and so to not let them down and deliver an experience they want to have where it's enough that it's Gears enough that they're like, I know this, but it's different enough that they feel like it's a new experience, and living up to that to bring what is a next-gen Gears to this audience, that's where the pressure is.
Now you're actually like part of the first-party family now, as opposed to being a third-party developer working on a first-party franchise. Right. Has that given you any kind of advantages? You were talking a little bit about some of the tech that you got from Microsoft's kind of internal research studios. I mean,
yeah, I mean, there's been some advantages. I think the nice thing about working with the relationship we had with Epic and Microsoft, a lot of ways it felt like we were a first-party studio, except we had enough independence that when we needed to rebel, we could. You know, and being inside of Microsoft makes it a little hard to rebel, but one of the great things is we treat ourselves as an independent studio, and we're able to leverage a lot of great, you know, whether it's like you heard about the Triton technology with Microsoft Research, whether it's the advanced technology group helping us to implement rendering features, or we have all this advantages of just Microsoft's large organization of really talented people, and we can tap into that.
Are you guys using any of the clouds? Crackdown 3 is coming out this year, using a lot of the cloud services. Are you using any of that?
We don't use the cloud for those types of game services, like the way the physics, the Crackdown does. We use the cloud for things like the way that we deal with, you know, our analytics and our telemetry, and the way that we deal with saves, and you know, what's one of the great things about Gears of War 4 that it's a lot more service-based, and so we're able to do a lot more in the cloud, and that if we want to change the number or make a tweak, we don't have to put out a title update, we can do it through the back end. So it's one of those things that we're definitely leveraging the features of the cloud to do as we look at matchmaking and online services, but it's not something we do from a gameplay feature perspective.
Obviously, it's important to innovate with a new Epic kind of saga coming, but like you said in the presentation earlier on, it's important to stay familiar and the same as well. How have you done that exactly?
Well, I mean, one of it is just really trying to understand, we wanted to stay grounded in what made Gears Gears. We felt like, after 7 years at Epic, if Epic wanted to change the game, fundamentally, people would go like, oh, they've been working on it 7 years, that's okay. But when we inherited it, and we're now the torchbearers for it, if we were to go and say like, hey, we're doing first-person Gears as an example, people are like, whoa, you don't even understand the franchise, how could you do that, right? And so we really felt like to legitimize ourselves, we had to pay respect to what's there and show that we can actually make a Gears experience. And that it wasn't like moving from Unreal Engine 3 to Unreal Engine 4 is not just of like, click a button and the whole game's ported over. There's a lot of work that went into that idea of parity and timings of animations and timings of systems and rewriting the AI and all this stuff. There's a lot of work just to even to recreate a Gears 3 experience in Unreal Engine 4. It took a lot of work. So that we had to spend a lot of time just to do that. And then we could talk about innovation, which we've done in terms of close-cover combat and sort of refining all the systems and making them smoother and those sorts of things. So, but it was really about, my philosophy was do it right before you do it different. Evolve, it's an evolution, not a revolution kind of stuff. And I think as we go forward, we can start once we prove that we know how to make a Gears experience, then we can start talking about innovating even more on top of that. But right now it's about, does it feel like Gears? And so you've played it, does it feel like Gears?
It does feel like Gears, yeah. And I guess from that perspective, because the fans know you and they've been with you for years on the Gears franchise, they know that you know Gears, right? So they can trust that it's in a good place.
Yeah, I mean, that's what my job is, right? My job is to bring that experience about what it is that I'm working for a decade essentially now, or the 7 years at Epic, and it's been a decade on Gears, that I'm able to help the team make sure that we're staying true to what makes Gears Gears, and that's, as the lead visionary for the product, that's my job. And so, I think people are seeing, and they'll see in the public beta that I believe we're delivering on that, and they'll see that as they play the campaign, they'll see that we're delivering on that. And so, yeah, I'm excited to be able to do that.
So 10 maps at launch, 9 new maps, and then you've got Gridlock. And then 3 maps every month for like 12 months kind of thing, and then you'll reassess.
Yeah, we're going to be doing free maps. We're basically available for public matchmaking. What we want to do is we didn't want to segment the audience into this idea of the haves and the have-nots, who got the DLC map pack, who didn't get the DLC map pack. So we just want to make those maps available for free. But we felt like if we just release all these maps, say we released over 24 maps after launch, now we got 34 maps, and people are just like, how do I consume all that? How do I get familiar with it? How do I play that? So we really wanted to curate the experience to say, like, we haven't figured out what the sweet spot, if it's 10, if it's 12, if it's 14, but there's a certain number of maps that is like a good body of content to play that you can actually learn and become familiar with, but you don't get bored of because it's the same maps over and over. But once we find that, then we're going to curate it and say, like, as we bring in new maps, we're going to talk about rotating maps out, and whether it be like, maybe they're not doing as well and we need to work on them, or maybe it's just time to take a break from that type of a map. And then if people want to, if they really feel like, hey, you know what, let's say Checkout is rotating out next month, and you're like, oh man, I love playing Checkout, then you can buy Checkout and have it for private play. And what's great is that as the host, only you need to have it. Like, your 9 friends can play on it with you, and only one person needs to actually own it.
Is this a Microsoft-led initiative? Because obviously they do
No, it's a coalition-led initiative.
Is it? Did you go to Microsoft and say, we want to give free maps? Is that?
Totally, yeah. It was like, this was our idea. We don't know, I think there's things that, like, you look at League of Legends where they're champions and stuff, there are other games that have similar stuff, but in terms of being able to give away free maps for a long period of time and curate it and rotate it out and be able to buy it for private play, I haven't heard of many games doing that, and that's been driven by our multiplayer design team and what they want to do and how we want to work with the community post-release, where we're not breaking up our player pool into these little tiny playlist segments. We wanted everybody to be playing together.
A lot has happened. Obviously the original Gears, esports was big and loads of people used to play it, but since then esports has taken off kind of exponentially.
Yeah, exactly.
And now we are here. How are you kind of planning to tackle that? Are you just hoping that people will just pick up where they left off and the audience be there? Or?
Well, no, I mean, the way I think about esports is something that is so community driven that you have to earn it. And that's one of the things that we recognize. Like, when we had Gears 1, 2, and 3, we sort of didn't really pay that much attention to the high competitive player, the esports player. And they kind of went off and did it themselves on their own. But because of that never really grew into much, right? And so as we look at returning to our roots of the esports and trying to create this sort of level playing field. So going back now to symmetrical maps and coming up with that new mode Escalation that really focuses on competitive play and creates a meta story. When we look at the new spectator mode to make viewership easier and casting easier, these are ways that we're not trying to diminish or take defocus away from the new players who want to have accessibility features. We have a ton of those as well, but it allows us to say like, hey, for the high-end play, we have something for you. And we treat Ultimate Edition as sort of our crawl and our crawl, walk, run sort of metaphor. And so we've had 2 seasons. We've seen viewership grow. We've seen 150 teams sign up for our Open Series. We've got professionals playing and sponsorships happening. And so for me, it's about how do we grow that community? Because you don't fill a stadium with a prize pool. You don't go like, hey, Gears of War, here's $1 million, fill a stadium. That doesn't work. Like, it has to be. The reason a stadium fills because of an esports event is because the community is so passionate about the game they're watching and want to play, and the players that are playing it, that they want to go and attend it and see it live. And so that's why I'm saying it's not given, it's earned. And that's what we want to do, is that Gears Ultimate Edition was the first step towards earning that, and we want to use Gears 4 to continue to earn it.
And is Escalation your masterpiece, your esports?
It is. Our hope is that Escalation is the masterpiece that helps to answer a lot of these. Because one of the things that happened, we found, is highly skilled competitive players focus on execution. And execution has a lot of problems when it comes to that kind of level of play, because you can get stalemates really easy, or it gets down to one guy's left alive and he's running around and dragging the match out, and so your tournaments go till 3 in the morning because they don't have a finite conclusion. And so one of the design elements of Escalation is it drives to a closure, so you know that no matter what happens, you're not going to stalemate, right? But then it also adds a metagame into it, so that there's reasons to talk about strategies. Like right now when you go and say, hey, we're going to go play checkout, I'll pick on checkout. When we play checkout, this is our strategy: 3 right, 2 left, go, every time, because nothing's changing. But now with Escalation, the map changes because the losing team gets to place the power weapons, and the rings change at halftime. And so because of these things are changing all the time, now that you have to have a team discussion and you have to have strategies. It's like, okay, if they put the boom shot, we're doing this, but if they put the torque bow, we're going to do that, or if they put the long shot, now we're going to go this way. And so now it becomes much more interesting because the games are much more dynamic and you have strategies, not just tactics. And so I think that's going to drive, and we've actually been testing it with professional players, and they're like, yeah, I would give up execution to play Escalation, which is exciting for us.
Do the losing team know what the other team, so the winning team know what the losing team are doing with their turn, kind of thing?
Yeah, they get to, right now they get to watch it get placed.
Okay.
And so basically there are power weapon slots on the map, and they get to go through and pick of the different slots, what do they want to put in that slot, and they can put a number of things into it.
But it's still kind of in the middle. It's not close to that.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's not perfectly all down the center. There's some things, but you know that, like, hey, they're going to make a rush for this power weapon or that power weapon. And sometimes what I've seen is the stuff that's closer to spawns tends to be you can't put the bigger weapon. So, like when you play now and you look at where a hammer burst might be placed on gridlock, which is close to the spawn because it's not the boom shot on the center. And the same thing is true for Escalation. The closer you get to a specific team orientation, the less power it has. But you can, at the middle, you can go like, I want boom shot, now go, right? And then the question is like, hey, they placed boom shot, is that because they're all going to rush forward? Is it meant to bait us away while they go and try to capture the rings? Like, that's the great thing about Escalation, is that it's got 3 live rings. And so how you play for those rings, and the fact that no matter the score, if you capture all 3 rings, you win. So you can be the furthest behind possible, but you can still come back and win because of the 3 rings. So it changes like, oh, they put the boom shot way up there because they're actually going to come in and take over the 3 rings while we're distracted thinking they're going to fight over the power weapon.